Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for March's edition of Health Bytes with Region 3. We are so pleased to welcome this month's speaker, Amy Callaway. Amy graduated from the University of Arizona in May of 2003 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology. She spent over a decade working in the child abuse field as a forensic interviewer and outreach manager for a couple of different children's advocacy centers in the Austin area and outlying counties. She has extensive knowledge about child abuse, domestic violence, human trafficking, crisis intervention, mental health, networking, and outreach. She has trained over 22,000 people in her career at over 750 training sessions. She's currently the Outreach and Disaster Coordinator for 211 Texas United Way Helpline for North Central Texas, Fort Worth. She was born and raised in Fort Worth and is very happy to be living and working back in her hometown to help make a difference in the lives of her fellow Texans. In today's Health Bites, Amy will give a presentation on 211 Texas. Thank you, Amy, for being our guest speaker this morning, and I will turn everything over to you.
Perfect. Thank you again for the great introduction this morning. I'm very happy to be here. Let me share my screen with you just to make sure that, do y'all see it? Just to make sure that you see the PowerPoint.
Yeah, looks
Okay,
good. We don't see a speaker view, but we see your
Yeah.
slides. Okay, cool.
Perfect. Okay, great. All righty. So let me pull this one up. Sorry, it's not liking something. Just a minute. Okay. Let me stop this for just 1 second. I see what's happening. Let me advance them and go from there. Okay. Slideshow from beginning. Thanks for your patience with me this morning. Let me see if I can share it now. Okay. All right. From the beginning. Here we go. Okay. Oops. Okay, so I cover Erath, Hood, Johnson, Palo Pinto, Parker, Somerville, Tarrant, and Wise counties. So it's my job to go and speak on 211 and what we are and the types of resources that we also have to offer. I also do disaster preparation trainings, which I'll get into. That'll make sense in just a couple minutes. So I cover these below counties and I have the ability to travel and go out to them anywhere. But if you do need 211 reps in other counties, I can help show you where that is in this presentation. So if you are not familiar with 211, it is a dialing code designated by the Federal Communications Commission or the FCC for Health and Human Service Information and Referral. So basically what this means is anytime that you need yourself finding information about something, like maybe you need to report that your Social Security card has been lost and stolen and that this number has been compromised, or say that you have a child that you need to get a driver's license at 16, so you don't know what kind of documents you need to take with you to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get a driver's license. All those adulting things that we have to do every day that we may not know who does that or how to reach out to them, you can call 211 and we will be able to help direct you and give you some information and let you know what you need to take with you to do those adulting type tasks. And then on the resource side of the house, we have over 11,000 search terms in our database. There are resources for all ages, including stuff for babies like diapers, baby wipes, baby formula, all the way up to older adults who often have multiple needs. So this really is a free information and resource line for anybody and everybody. We answer 24/7, 365 days a year. So yes, even if someone calls us at 2 or 3 in the morning, we will answer that call, and we get a lot of mental health calls in the middle of the night. We have access to a language line, so that gives us the ability to help people in over 150 languages. For my areas, I obviously see English and Spanish on my call logs, but I've also seen a lot of Vietnamese and Arabic listed as well. So anytime you have a client that doesn't know who to call for something, or you don't know who to send them to, or if you need something in your personal life and you're like, I don't know who to call for that, you can call 211. So let me explain this to you because the system is a little bit of a complicated web. So I want to unweb it for you today so that you know how to get to where you need to go the fastest. So let me start big picture and then narrow in. The Health and Human Services Commission of the state of Texas is actually the one that owns 211. And then they contract out to different agencies to answer the 211 calls. So I'll get into that in just a little bit, but I want to explain that this is a state program and that different agencies work within it. Then there is an agency called Inform USA. So that is essentially the information and referral umbrella organization that oversees all of the 211s in terms of our protocols and procedures to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. So that's called Inform USA. And one of the things that they mandate to us is that we are actually required to update every single resource, which is so many in the 211 database. We have to update every single one at least once a year. So we're making sure that we're doing that so that the agencies that we're giving out to people for help and resources are current and up to date in terms of programs that are being offered, their address, their telephone number, their hours of operation, things like that. So when you take a look at the map of the United States, every single state that's in dark blue has full coverage of 211. And then you'll see that Illinois is a little bit farther behind at 90%, but they're mostly covered. And then Ohio and Georgia have about 75% coverage. So the US is covered by 99% by 211. And then also a side note, we're also even in Canada. So how this gets a little bit complicated, and I want to make sure there's a couple things I'm going to say during training to not forget. So this is one of them. Each state has its own 211 database of resources. So there's not a nationally localized database that we pull from. They're all separate from each other depending upon state. So where things can get a little bit wonky is when it comes to cell phones. So if you have a Texas number, all that you have to do to reach 211 is dial 211. However, I have seen out-of-state cell phones dial 211 when somebody lives in Texas, and then they get 211 from the state that their phone number is assigned to. Then I've also seen it, like I grew up in Fort Worth, but my parents moved me to Arizona, and I was there for about 9 years when I got my first cell phone when they first came out. I still have that number to this day. I dialed 211 from my Arizona number while I was physically in Texas, and I got 211, but I've gotten feedback that if you're calling from an out-of-state number that you might get the state that your phone is assigned to. So if that's the case and you need resources for 211 in Texas, the 877 number that's listed here is the number that you'll need to dial in order to get to 211 in Texas. And like they mentioned, they're sharing the slides with y'all. So I want to untangle the web for you. So one of my biggest pet peeves is when you call into somewhere and you get an agency that is not even who you need to talk to. So I want to break down everything so that you fully understand the web and that it's untangled for you. So as you look at the state of Texas, you'll see the different areas that they've mapped off by color. There's what's called Area Information Centers, or AICs. That essentially is the formal name for a 211 call center. Then, depending upon what area you're in Texas, that determines when you call in what call center you will reach. So I mentioned in the chat, it says United Way of Greater Houston for my email. I live in Fort Worth. However, my area information center that answers calls for Tarrant, Erath, Hood, Johnson, Palo Pinto, Parker, Somerville, Tarrant, and Wise counties is actually the 211 call center, or the AIC, that's located at the United Way of Greater Houston. So I live here locally in the North Texas area to cover my counties, but our calls ring down to Houston. So depending upon where you are, that will determine what area information center you get sent to. So my AIC covers my area. We also answer calls for the Coastal Bend area, which is Corpus Christi. And then we obviously, since we're in Houston, answer calls for the Harris County area and the surrounding counties down by Houston, there in green. So my area information center answers for 33 counties in Texas. So like I mentioned earlier, one of my biggest pet peeves is when you call into somewhere and then you get sent to someplace where you don't need to be, or you don't know what option to choose. So this is the quickest, fastest way to untangle that web for you. So when you're calling into 211, you'll hear "Welcome to 211 Texas." Press 1 for English or 2 for Spanish. They've actually added option 3, or number 3, for someone to choose another language. So if they need Urdu, Arabic, Vietnamese, they can choose option 3, and then that will get them to the place that they need to get to be able to choose the language that they need. So this slide is a little bit outdated, but just know that there is a press 3 available now. Then it's going to ask you for a service selection. So here's how to where you get to where you need to go the fastest. So anything regarding help with utility bills, food, employment, childcare, all those needs that everybody has, or general information about like social security cards, birth certificates, and other adulting tasks, those are going to be at option 1. And that will ring over to Houston to my coworkers to pick up those calls. Then there's some things about the system that are not perfect, and I'm not going to hide that. So I want to explain that to you. So option 2 is one of the things that is not perfect. It can be messy. So if they have state benefits like Medicaid, Texas assistance for needy families, food stamps, SNAP, all of that, they're going to need to call in and choose option 2. And here's the problem. There are so many Texans who have those programs, and the amount of call volume that is being called into option 2 is off of the charts. So here's the good, bad, and ugly. There is a minimum of a 3-hour hold time before you will get a live person at option 2 right now because of the call volume. So let me explain this to you. So there's over 200 counties in Texas. For my 8 counties alone in 2022, there was 87,586 calls that went into option 2 for only 8 counties. They are answering for over 200. So if they're going to call in, you need to give them a heads up. That's a minimum of a 3-hour wait time on the phone. Now, here's Amy's backdoor suggestion for you. They can download the Your Texas Benefits app on their cell phone or log into the website on Your Texas Benefits and try and do what they need to do through that app. However, if they're not able to do that, or they can't find the status of something that they've submitted and they need to know that if it's been approved and they can't find it online, they're unfortunately going to have to call in and choose option 2. So I just want to be very upfront about this because that's very frustrating for us who are trying to help, but it's even more frustrating for the people needing help. So just know that if they're waiting on something, they can call in and choose option 1 so that we can get them food in the meantime while their applications are processing, or we can get them to a clinic for healthcare while they're waiting for their Medicaid stuff to go through. So you can use option 1 as a substitute while they're waiting for their state stuff to pend or go through the application process. So just a heads up about that. Then the state needed a way for people to be able to report anything like fraud or any illegal and illegal things going on in any of the state programs, so that people can do that through option 3 at Office of the Inspector General. Option 4 deals with the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry, which deals with disasters. So just bear with me because I'm going to get to that in a few slides. So I'm going to skip over it for now. And then if anybody needs anything regarding mental health and substance abuse, like free low-cost sliding scale therapy services, behavioral health hospitals, addiction treatment centers, crisis hotline numbers. And then I will point this out really quick. Y'all, I have some squirrel moments. That's just how my brain works, where I'm like, oh, I need to talk about that. So the new, it's not new, but it's about 2 years old. The National Crisis Hotline for Mental Health is now 988. So what was happening before is that people were calling 911 when people were having a mental health problem or a psychotic break, and the police officers were going out and they weren't trained mental health professionals, right? So we all saw the fallout that came from that. So now there is now a national hotline number that will connect them to a mental health professional, and that is now 988. That number will be listed at option 8 if anybody needs it. If they forget it, they can call in. So who's calling 211 Texas? So I always wondered this for the longest time, and there's actually a name for it, which I think is finally we have classified it. So it's called the ALICE population. So that this means asset limited, income constrained, employed. So these are the vulnerable community members that they earn above the federal poverty line, but that's still not enough for them to be able to pay their bills and make ends meet. So this is people who work jobs like fast food, coffee shops, childcare providers, and essential workers. They work full time, but they're not bringing in enough money to pay the bills. And then the other population of people that we see a lot of, and this is who a lot of my follow-up calls with, are the elderly. So as y'all know, most of them live on their Social Security checks, and trying to do that now when the cost of living has skyrocketed is such a challenge for them. I've got 78 and 80-year-olds who can't pay their rent and their mortgage, and the only options that I have to give them for like immediate housing quote unquote, are homeless shelters. So affordable housing is a really big problem throughout the nation. It's a very big problem in Texas right now. So I just want to kind of give you the official name so that we can be talking about it and help hopefully get this changed. So it's called the Alice population. So one of the things that I like to take a minute to do is that this is a very hard job to have to listen to people who can't pay their bills, that are trying to take care of their children, that are sick and needing help every day. So I just wanted to give props to our call specialists for a second. They literally are mama and papa bears that hear horrible things all day long. And I will tell you that they handle it way better than I do. I'm very upfront about things. So I just want you to know that when you send your people to us, or if you're calling on someone's behalf, which you're welcome to do, it's like talking to a family member or a mama and papa bear on the phone. And as someone who doesn't trust easily, because working child abuse cases, you learn not to trust people because you learn what humanity is capable of, which is sad. I'm not a very trusting person, but I will tell you that I trust every single person in that 211 network wholeheartedly. There is not one person at my agency in Houston that I don't like or that gives me a bad vibe. And I usually can't say that about places. So I just want y'all to know that you're in good hands. So this is probably the reason why I was invited here today. What kinds of things can 211 be helpful with? So the first thing is basic needs. So this is going to be help with housing, rent and mortgage assistance. This does not come immediate. We can't get them housed in a day or two or even a week. This is a process. So just want to be open about that. There's help with the gas bill, the electric bill, the water bill. I put food under this category. I put childcare under this category. And I also put employment underneath it, under this category, because you have to be employed to be able to purchase all the things that you need to survive. Then you have the criminal justice and legal services category. So if someone just needs general information about the criminal justice system and how it works or what the flow of it is, after somebody gets arrested, we can explain that to them. And then on the legal services side of the house, this is really more like person to person issues, like a he said, she said type situation, such as if somebody's being evicted and they want to fight their eviction because they've given their landlord the money, but the landlord is claiming that they never got it. Or say that you have a legal separation going on where a husband and wife or partners are splitting up and they don't know how to go about filing that legal separation or how to go about doing that. There are legal clinics that are listed in 211 that can give them, that free low-cost sliding scale legal type help that they need. And there's a bunch of other things, but these are just the general things that we see the most of. Then you have the healthcare category. So this one is massive. This could be your clinic health, just general health clinics in the area that do free low-cost sliding scale services. Obviously, a lot of people don't know that those exist, and then they always go to the ER every time there's a health emergency. So we're trying to change that narrative that if you have a cold or a flu or something like that, please don't go to the ER. Find a clinic in the area that does free low-cost sliding scale services to help free up the ER and their staff. This will also be help with a prescription cost. This could be help with a copay for a medical visit. Then this could be also your access and functional needs community, otherwise known as special needs community, who may be blind, deaf, intellectually and developmentally disabled, may have autism or some sort of other special need that they have. And they may be new to the area and they don't know who to reach out to that works with those needs that they have. We can call 211 and see if there's any organizations in the area that work with that specific need. One of the ones that I also put under this, just because I think that there's some resources listed in 211 that almost make me cry when I talk about them. So this is one of them. So say that somebody becomes paralyzed and they now have to live their life in a wheelchair. There are organizations that will help with medical equipment to get them a wheelchair, to get them a walker, whatever they need. Or the other thing that's available is to be able to build ramps on their homes at no cost or low cost to them so that they can get in and out of their homes safely. Door widening. There are also area agencies on aging and disability resources, where as people get older, if they need grab bars installed in their bathrooms to move around the bathrooms more safely. So all types of those things fall under these types of categories under healthcare. So there's a bunch of stuff, but just those are the general ones we see the most of. Then you have mental health care and counseling. So this is going to be your free low-cost sliding scale therapists, therapy groups in the area, your addiction treatment centers, behavioral health hospitals, crisis hotline numbers, 988 numbers. We talked about that earlier, but just to reiterate that. And then 211 has identified two certain groups of people, and we get a lot of calls from these populations. And so we wanted to make sure that they don't fall through the cracks. So we do some extra follow-ups with these folks. So the first one is older adults. We consider an older adult somebody aged 60 years of age and older. They have multiple needs. They have housing needs. They have food insecurities. They need help with their health care costs. They need help with transportation. So we do follow-ups with older adults to make sure that they're getting the resources that they need. So that actually falls on me right now on top of everything else. I do the follow-ups for my area to make sure that the resources they originally got, that those have worked. And then if not, I have to do some outside of the box thinking or do a deeper dive into the database. Same thing with veterans, active duty military members, and military families. There are multiple needs here. You would think that they're military and they're not, but there are. There's actually food insecurities going on with our military and our veterans right now, as well as housing issues. I talked to a 53-year-old yesterday that's a veteran, and he's 2 months behind on his rent. So there's also physical needs here if they were hurt in a war zone, in terms of like amputations, broken bones, things like that, long-term illnesses. And then you also have the mental health disorders, trying to take care of their kids. So we do follow-ups with veterans, active duty military, and military members. It's called Mission United. And then lastly, the disaster services. So here's where we get into this. And it's cool and it's fascinating, but it's also extremely scary and terrifying what I know. So in times of disaster, wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, severe flooding events, mass school shootings. We had a gas explosion down in downtown Fort Worth not that long ago. When those horrific things happen, 211 will list resources for sheltering, food distribution, water distribution, where people can move livestock to if they're out, on the farther skirts and they've got, their cows, steer, chickens, all of those types of things. Well, in times fire, you have to move them. They're going to pass away. So for example, Amarillo, saw someone was from there. I'm so sorry for what y'all have been dealing with those fires up there. It's heartbreaking, and I feel for you. Thank you for hanging in there and staying strong. 211 has been listing all the resources for those wildfires up in that area the last few weeks. And the state's been communicating with us about what we need to be listing. So we work with the Offices of Emergency Management, Texas Department of Emergency Management, and all those people to make sure that Texans are getting their resources for disaster events. So the other thing that 211 lists is seasonal resources. This is another part of my job, which I think is cool. So when kids are not in school for the summer, we're going to list where they can go for food if they relied on the schools for food. We list their summer camps, their summer childcare options. Then when they go back to school in the fall, we're going to list who's helping with school supplies, school clothes. Winter rolls around, they need their winter coats, their winter shoes, things like that. And then the holidays at like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, all of that, we will list who's helping with gifts and food for the holidays as well. So I just wanted to make sure, in case I have anybody that is in the audience that is either a vet or a military member, or they know someone, friend, family that is a veteran or a military member, here's the Mission United information. So they can text the word mission to 898-211, or when you call into 211 and we answer your call, every single call, we ask if you are a member of your household or military, so we can identify you from the get-go, because there are some resources listed in 211 that are specific to military and veterans only. So I'll give you an example. If you ask me for car repairs for a normal community member that has never been in the military in any way, shape, or form, the likelihood of us being able to find that for you for a car repair is slim to none. Parts are expensive, then you add in the labor and everything like that. But in my area, there are car repair places that will help veterans and military members, and thank goodness for them, right? We need that help for them. So I'm very thankful that people have a special place in their heart and that are willing to extend those services to military and veterans. So you can also email at veterans@unitedwayhouston.org. And I did ask, turnaround time for our stuff is same day or next day for emails. Okay, so what were the needs? These are just my areas only, my 8 counties. So I can't speak to those of you in other parts as to what your numbers look like, but I will be able to tell you where you can go to get that information. So for my 8 counties, including Tarrant last year, the number one thing was utility assistance programs at 23,896. Rent and mortgage came in at number 2. Housing came in at number 3. Food came in at number 4, and my total connections from my 8 counties last year was 256,526. And this is about 90,000 more connections in 2023 than there were in 2022. The needs have never been more great than they are right now, at least in my lifetime. So if you want data, if you write grants and you need all that information to speak about what's going on in your area, this slide is for you. So the 211 Counts website is tx.211counts.org. You can pull the 211 data by city, you can pull it by county, you can pull it by zip code and kind of manipulate it for whatever particular region of information you're needing. And then also for my 8 counties, the United Way of Tarrant County has been kind enough to list on their website my data for my 8 counties, and that's listed here. So there's a lot of 3-digit numbers that people can call for things. So I put this in here just to make sure that I included that for the different things that they do. So 211, obviously I meant talking about information and resources and disaster stuff. The 988 number, like I mentioned earlier, is the suicide and crisis hotline number. And then you have your 988, which is your medical emergencies, robberies happening. You guys know someone's hurt or, whatever the situation may be. So just to go over this again in a little bit more detail. So we are the place to call during a disaster event. We do the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry, which is my next slide, so bear with me. We will list any shelter or reception center information. Any local, state, and federal assistance is being made available to the public. We do a lot of reassurance and rumor control. We did a lot of stuff during COVID to help kind of figure out what's real, what's not real, and help kind of calm the public down and clarify things when they called in asking us for COVID information, testing sites, things like that. And then any long-term recovery efforts that are being put in place, those will be listed with 211. So for example, Team Rubicon is actually a wonderful organization. And after like floods, they will go in and help clean all that, we call it muck, out of people's homes, like the dirt, the debris, and things like that, help remove tree branches. So any of those long-term recovery efforts and people who do those things, that will be listed with 211 as well. So the State of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry is meant for our keyword vulnerable community members who might need extra help during a disaster event, or they may need help evacuating. So let me give you an example. The blind, the deaf, the intellectually and developmentally disabled, the elderly, those who have mobility issues, those who have dementia and Alzheimer's, they may not fully understand that there's a disaster happening, 2, let alone know how to prepare for it, and 3, let alone be able to do something like evacuate if they had to. So if you have those vulnerable community members, they need to be signed up for this program. You can call on their behalf, or they can call for themselves and choose option 4. Whatever AIC you reach will fill out the registration information to you and submit it. However, there are a couple caveats here. Do not shoot the messenger, please. Not every county in Texas participates in this program. It depends upon where you are. So just a heads up about that. And then this also does not guarantee that someone is going to come to their aid, but it at least gives emergency responders and planners a heads up about where our vulnerable community members are, so that they can hopefully get out to those areas and start searching in the event of a disaster. So kind of just as I start to wrap things up before taking questions, ways to reach 211, because there's multiple. So the first one, Texas number, dial 211, or you can try it from an out-of-state area code and hope that you get 211 in Texas. But if you don't, here's that 877 number that you can call once again to get 211 in Texas. You can also go to 211texas.org, which is our website. And on there, you can search needs by the zip code. And there's a help guide at the bottom where if you don't know the search terms, or you just need kind of an overall idea of literally the massive amount of resources there are, because like I mentioned, there's 11,000 search terms. That's listed on the website. And then in the top right, there is a chat feature, and we can chat in both English and in Spanish as well. If you need help for my 8 counties, you can email us at help@unitedwayhouston.org. And then just as a reminder, we answer 24/7. So what I want to do really quickly to hopefully help with things as I begin to wrap up for you is let me move this. Hold on, y'all, 1 second. I need to make it shorter. Okay. So I want to go to our website and point out a couple of things for you. Okay. So here's the website. It's the Blue Bonnets. Right here is the chat now feature. And like I mentioned in red, the Your Texas Benefits website is listed here. Disaster information will be listed under the disaster tab. More information has the 211 counts, data, and mental health stuff. Now here, for those of you who are not in my areas and you want to know who your 211 rep is, go to partner and then go to add or edit your listing. You'll be able to choose your county that you live in and then hit search or enter, and it will pull up your contact person. So if it's not me, you can find it under that partner tab. So here's how you search the 211 website. So down here at the bottom is the guided search, like I mentioned earlier, if you need help with our taxonomy terms or our search terms. And then when you do a search, I'm just going to do one for my area. If I put in food pantries, and then I put in my zip code, and then I hit search. You got to give it a second because it's got to pull everything by how you asked it to. It will pull up a map so that you can kind of get an idea generally of where things are in relation to what you asked for. And then here's the information. So for instance, oops, too far. This one is Birchman Baptist Church. They do a food pantry on Thursdays from 1 to 3. Their eligibility requirements say that they're open to anybody and everybody. However, please always check the eligibility requirements because sometimes it will say U.S. citizen only. We do have resources for anybody and everybody, regardless of their immigration status, but that's up to the agency to decide their eligibility requirements. So please check that. And then obviously check the area to make sure that that it's right. Okay. So I just want to point that out really quickly. And then what I want to do is put up as I start to ask y'all questions. Here is my contact information for and I put it also in the chat that has my telephone number. Please do not send your clients to me. I cannot be taking state of Texas requests from everybody. I am only one person. However, because you've been trained by me, if you need to reach out, you have a question, you get stuck on something, especially if you're in my areas, let me know and I'll be happy to help you. Okay. So let me be able to pull this back up. I'm going to stop sharing just so that I can see all of y'all, but my contact information is in the chat. Okay. So are there any questions or anything that you would like to ask me?
Yeah, we do have a question.
Sure.
Let me back up here. So one question is just from Morgan. We have several clients who've tried to use 211 in the past, and they have had limited support through the line. They have been told they don't qualify for most of the services offered. Do you have other suggestions for those individuals when they call in? Typically, it's individuals looking for electric bill, food, or support.
Okay. So, and honestly, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Things that are extremely hard to find right now are help with rent and mortgage assistance and help with utility bills. So here's the thing. I understand their frustration and I get it. I really and truly do. Believe me, I was doing follow-up calls yesterday and a couple of them, I was like, bang head here. So here's the problem. The resources that are listed with us, there are agencies that always have money. And then there are agencies where their pots of money ebb and flow. So I'll give you an example. The Aging and Disability Resource Center, they opened up their calls for help with utility bills on the first of the month. They had all of their slots filled for appointments within 30 minutes. So the problem is that the need right now is so great and it exceeds the amount of money and resources that are available. So we combat this, or we try to. And I'm giving you standards and protocols. Okay. So I want to train you best practice. in our information and resource field, the standard is to give them a minimum of 3 resources for each need that they have. 3 food pantries, 3 organizations to reach out to for utility bill assistance. And we do that so that if one for some reason doesn't work, they have 2 backups. And then they are always welcome to call. So we should have some resources that are listed as consistent, where that we know that they're going to have money, but be patient with us just because those numbers and those calls are going up and we're doing the best that we can. It's just that those pots of money go really quickly. And then the other thing that we've seen, unfortunately, like I said, y'all, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This can be a mess. Is that when the COVID funding was being put in place to help people recover from the pandemic, there was a lot more money available. And now that that money is no longer being offered, we're seeing the consequences of it. So we are just doing the best that we can. If there is not a resource for whatever it is that they're needing, the other thing that we can do is some outside of the box thinking. So if they need help with a utility bill and there's not help with a utility bill, we can look and see if there's a food pantry so that we can get them some food to help free up the money that they would have spent on the food to help put it towards the utility bills. So our call specialists are really good at being able to do some outside of the box thinking, to see if we can free up money elsewhere if we can't do it directly with the need that they have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're seeing that. I live in Kansas and we see that all the
Yep.
time. But
Yep.
yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah,
So
you're
I have a
welcome.
question.
Sure.
So I was looking my question was about a chat box, and I
Okay.
noticed on the website you do have that. So is that a good way to, let's say I'm a person that doesn't have internet access at home and I need to go to the library to access your services. Is the chat a good way to connect with someone? Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
it's answered. We don't just leave it sitting there. There's always somebody monitoring it and answering that. And that's also really good for like those who may be like deaf and they may, they don't like the Texas relay call system. They could always hop online, right, and do a chat with us. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible and as accessible to everybody as we possibly can. And then the general email is help@unitedwayhouston.org, and they can reach out that way as well, and we'll get back to them through an email. So whatever way they're most comfortable communicating, that's up to them to decide how they want to reach out.
That's great. Great. Cool. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions for our speaker? It's such robust information. I'm really impressed. Let me look here. Oh, here comes one. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah, I didn't realize that this even existed until we connected with you, and it's just pretty amazing all the things that are listed on here. I'm just totally amazed.
Yeah. So we've
Yeah.
been around for 20 years, which is crazy, and people don't know about us. I've reached out to police departments and they're like, I've been on the streets for years. How did I not know about you? And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm trying to change that narrative. And I will tell you, sometimes there's not a resource for something. There just isn't. And so we're not going to give those callers hope or get their hopes up if something doesn't exist. We will be very outright with, hey, we don't have a resource for that, but let's see if there's some other area, like I mentioned, that we can free that money up to put towards what you need. So we try and be as creative as possible. And I have even made calls to people for that veteran that I told y'all about that's 2 months behind on his rent. I made some backdoor calls myself and advocated for him yesterday to help get him connected to get that rent paid. So we can even do some of that advocacy work and use our contacts that we know and reach out to.
That's great. So there is a question. Do you have any resources for felons?
Yes, those are listed. I'm not gonna lie, they're fewer and far in between, but we do have some that are listed. Yes.
Someone asks if there's if there's the ability to have access to a phone, maybe a cell phone
Yep.
assistance.
Yes, I've seen requests for that. And yes, there are some services, at least in my areas. I can't speak statewide, but in my areas, there are.
Okay. Let's see here. I saw another one. Okay. Uh, Okay. Lots of thank yous for all the great information. So yeah, I mean, I think this would be something for us to share across our network with our public librarians, et cetera, to know, to let them know about it. And yeah, when you showed the map about the availability statewide, I mean, not statewide, but nationally, I was
Yep.
intrigued. So
Yes.
yeah, that's great.
And like I
What?
mentioned, you can go to that partner tab and find who you're and go down to add or edit organization, search it by your county, and that will pull up your local contact. And if you ask me who it is, that's exactly what I'm going to go do. So we have the ability to travel out to do talks on 211 or disaster preparation. So let me give you an example of a quick disaster prep thing. And don't worry, it's probably going to be silent. And I'm used to that because this is why I asked that question. If you're at work, your partner is across town at their job and your kids or grandkids are at school. The weather gets really bad out and a tornado decimates the area that you live in. Like, sorry, but your house is no longer standing or it has major damage. The police are out there blocking off the exits to keep looters from coming in. And so you found out that you literally cannot go home. Like your home is not existent. Like, I am so sorry. Communication is down because the tornado knocked out power lines, cell phones are not working, internet's down. And your family question, do you have a meetup where if you cannot go home, that you as a family know where to meet up as a family if you can't communicate and you can't go home? Most people, when I ask that in a room, go dead silent. So we do disaster preparation training to teach people what kind of plans you need to have in place, what kind of supplies you need to have at home in the event of a disaster, the types of insurance that you need to think about for your home, because like it is vital. I'll give you a perfect example. Those wildfires out in Amarillo, right? When those wildfires hit and they didn't know where the shelters were, I'm going to assume that the power was out from what I was hearing. I have a dear friend who works for the Red Cross, and she was actually one of the ones at the shelters out there. There were 300 homes burned down to the ground. They are no longer existent. And they did about 900 or slightly over home assessments, damage assessments. So in those, that's a perfect example of something hit, things got knocked out. Where's the meetup point? So please be talking to your family about these things. Please start stocking up on disaster supplies. And I can do a whole nother training on that. One of the things that I'll tell you to have on hand, cash. If we lose our electricity and you need gas, you need food, you need supplies, and the credit cards don't work, how are you going to pay for things? So I have a little bit. I don't want to sound like I'm a millionaire because I don't do this job for the money necessarily. But you need to have some cash stored away so that you can grab it and go in the event of a disaster. So that type of stuff we can talk about as well. And then we can also set up tables at community events to get the word out.
Well, that's really good information because we're coming on tornado season.
It's
And
tomorrow. We've
it's
got severe
tomorrow.
weather in my area literally tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it's starting, and I hadn't thought about that either. But I know Tornado Alley has shifted a little bit. Being I'm Kansas, we're famous for tornadoes, but I know
Yeah.
it's shifted over to the east a bit. So
Yeah.
very good. Well, really, if there are no more questions, I just want to thank you so much. It's just been really great presentation and just so much good information. So we're going to put our slides up again. Let's see. That's all right, great. So one thing that we'd like to point out to you that, Amy shared so many great resources today, and we want to thank her and, sharing that expertise that she's bringing to the state of Texas. But, if you want to learn more about any of the topics that she covered, you might want to consider going to Medline Plus. Medline Plus is an online health information resource for patients and their families and friends. And it's a service of the National Library of Medicine, the world's largest medical library, which is part of NIH, the National Institutes of Health. So the mission of Medline Plus is to present high quality, relevant health information, as well as wellness information that's trusted and easy to understand. It's available in both English and Spanish, and we make reliable health information available anytime, anywhere for free, kind of like 211 Texas. There's no advertising on this website, and Medline Plus does not endorse any companies or products. So please check out Medline Plus, and we look forward to seeing you all at next month's Health Bites in Region 3.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.